Hey everyone, hope your day's going well. Looks like we're not doing much in class today. Jay chillin', watching a video. So Mrs. Osherman has asked me to talk to you guys about my experiences with Spanish and Spanish in the real world, Spanish in college. So let's get started. My name is Tyler Umbro, and I'm a junior at the University of Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, pursuing a degree in natural sciences and concentrations in Spanish, neuroscience, and chemistry, with the goal to go on to medical school or physician assistant school. Pero el español. I started taking Spanish as a ninth grader with Mrs. Martha, and I actually couldn't even count to five, which is pretty embarrassing when you think about it because everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people grow up watching Dora. I grew up watching Dora, but I'm dumb, so I still couldn't count to five. Day one, already behind everybody. Uh, and it was fine, Spanish one, nothing super challenging. If you go and you pay attention, you'll probably get an A, maybe a B, that's fine, whatever. And then the summer rolled around. I was a volunteer at Chambersburg Hospital, and we had this patient who couldn't speak English, and she had maybe four or five teeth. And so she was crying and freaking out, even though we were just taking her to get an x-ray. And I asked the nurse, is there anything that you do or that she does that makes her feel better, that comforts her? And she said to sing. I cannot, at this point, have a coherent nor fluent conversation with a native Spanish speaker, but I can definitely ask her to sing. Well, not maybe so much ask, more so just say the word sing, and then she kind of catches on. So I did that, and she stopped crying, and she started smiling, and she was singing, and that was the moment that I realized that I needed to get as good at this language as I can. I need to be able to reproduce that feeling in my future patients and just the people that I come in contact with in general. I mean, people are incredibly, incredibly grateful to see that you know a little bit of Spanish, that you try to communicate with them in their native language, because like many people that grow up in the United States, I grew up thinking that English is the white hot center of the universe, and it very much is not. It's something that I have seen firsthand, that I have come to know in my adult and collegiate life, and I cannot stress enough how important I think learning a second language, specifically Spanish, is. So, what is Spanish like in college? So I got to college and I was enrolled in grammar and composition, which bypassed Spanish 1, 2, 3, and 4 because I took AP with Mrs. Osherman my senior year. So it was a lot of writing. I was not prepared for how much writing I would have to do. I had to do 7 or 8 diary entries and 4 or 5 longer essays, like 3 to 4 pages, which might not sound like a lot, but when you're writing in Spanish and it's not your primary language, you're struggling for words. You're throwing in the yos and you're throwing in the nosotros and words that just kind of take up space. So it wasn't challenging, but just kind of getting used to the whole college experience in general. I mean, when to do your laundry, when to eat, when to exercise. Getting used to that was just kind of a lot. But for those of you that think that you might want to take Spanish in college, you can't put studying off. It's really, really easy to put it off, but it is essential that you have some self-discipline and you try to look at it at least every day, every other day. Maybe you can skirt by with that, but they don't wait around. I got a taste of this whenever we had someone come in subbing for Mrs. Osherman. He was a college professor, and he wasn't waiting around for me to learn the subjunctive, so I had to learn the subjunctive really quickly. And for those of you that know the subjunctive, you know that the rules are messy and foggy, unclear, so in college, that is exactly, you need to know it, and you need to know it that day. If you have any questions, sure, go ask your professor, go ask your teaching assistant. Otherwise, we're moving on. So that would be the biggest tip I have. Another thing, being that writing is such a huge thing in college, your university or college will have more than likely a writing center. Go to the writing center. Go have another set of eyes on your paper. I hate being told what to do. I hate being criticized. Don't tell me how to drive. I'll be pissed. Don't tell me how to cook. I'll be pissed. And don't tell me how to speak or write Spanish. I'll be pissed. But at the same time, I'm on the DL, going home, making these corrections on my essays, and getting an A on them because I got some feedback. And even though I'm so hard-headed, it's quality I need to work on myself. It helps. It really helps. So I recommend doing that. And then one last thing to consider for Spanish in college is at my university, and this was just recently changed, but at my university, the first and second semester of a second language is usually 4 to 5 credits. Standard classes are 3 credits. Foundations of Biology, for example, that's 3 credits. But whenever you're in elementary Spanish 1, that was 5 credits. 5 credit A or A minus even is worth way more than a 3 credit A. And we love the GPA buffers. GPA is not like it is in high school. It's very different. So I will take all the padding I can get, and that was one thing that maybe I should have done differently. Obviously, I got by and didn't have to take Spanish 1 through 4, but if I did, maybe my GPA would be a little higher. Would I be mad about that? No. And then also you have to know yourself. Do you like a challenge? Do you maybe need a little bit of a refresher? Are you maybe super, super intimidated by college in general and how college works? You have to kind of figure that out for yourself. Finally, in AP Spanish, because I took AP Spanish with Mrs. Osherman, we had designated days where we would speak entirely in Spanish. Enteramente en español, no inglés. That's like that every day in college. Every single day. Apart from maybe the first 2 days where you're figuring out what's on your syllabus, what textbook you need, what online platform you need to do to get your homework done. Solamente el español. And that's maybe something hard to get used to. I mean, I'm used to it by now. Hard to think back on being thrown into that environment, I guess. But it's definitely something that if I wasn't foundationally strong in, like in high school, I would have struggled with, I think. And I have seen a lot of people struggle with that. So that's it for college. Now, this is tailored towards the AP students, so I have a couple tips about the AP exam that you may want to jot down. So I took the AP exam, I got a 4, didn't get a 5, not salty about it 3 years later, regardless. Just for writing and speaking, I think it's important if you try to use synonyms for really common words. So let's take the example, hablar. We all know what hablar means. We've known hablar since 9th grade, probably. You probably knew it if you were in public school in 8th or 7th grade, whenever it is you start learning second language. Hablar, to speak. Maybe instead of using yo hablo, tú hablas, él habla, use discutir, or contar, or comunicar. These words all kind of make it sound like you've been around the block once or twice. They sound a little more educated, less repetition. Even if you use one of them in tandem with hablar, you can say, yo hablé con mi profesor ayer, and then 1 or 2 sentences later, mi profesor me comunicó que quiere que blah, 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 blah. Another great example of a common word is pensar. So, pensar, to think. I have down considerar. So, that's kind of, I feel like that's a beefy word, considerar. Juzgar, to judge. And imaginar. All of these words, they sound like they have more meat and potatoes to them, if you will. They sound like they have more of an oomph. And then finally, the word tener, to have, I have down poseer, that's a good one, and obtener, to obtain. So those are just some suggestions that I have for writing and speaking. Like, for example, I use the word subrayar to highlight now in like all of my essays and stuff, and I'm like, all right, because I just feel like it sounds more educated. I don't know. And then finally, the yellow book. So you've been with this yellow book all year, and you hate it at this point. She's giving you these quizzes left and right, and they're meant to piss you off. They're designed to annoy you because they're so repetitive. But they help so much. I have come across words in the real world that I have seen for the first time in that book. And it sucks. I mean, it really does. I would spend hours and hours and hours making flashcards, but if you want to do well on those little quizzes, then you'll spend the time to like make those flashcards or sticky notes, whatever your study method is. But then also success in the real world, like it helps. I mean, it really helps. She only puts words on there that she has encountered herself in the real world. And my homegirl Ash has been all over the place. She plans on continuing to go all over the place and raising her perfect children who speak English and Spanish better than you and I ever will. But she's come across a lot of different words that people use in different countries, because you know that different countries have different ways of saying things, some appropriate and others inappropriate, which is funny to find out sometimes. But yeah, the yellow book. Know that yellow book. The yellow book is your best frenemy. That's how I like to put it. And so, finally, well, I kind of want to throw this in there. Learning Spanish, personally, I found learning Spanish was aided by the help of music. So I would listen to a song in Spanish, and I would be like, I have no idea what that one word means. It sounds kind of like exotic. Let's look it up. Looked it up. Oh, okay, it means whatever. There's a new word. Foundational vocabulary is incredibly important to succeeding in your Spanish classes, succeeding in college, AP exam, succeeding in the real world. Just having those words to fall back on and to choose from, it makes things, I mean, you wouldn't be where you are in high school without your foundational vocabulary in English. So think of it like that. But let's just take the example that you're at a party somewhere, your friends are tossing the aux around, and, it gets to you, and they're saying, like, put on a good song, put on a song that claps, like a bumpin' song. This example happened to me. I put on Suavemente by Elvis Crespo, and that song just, like, makes you want to get up and dance. It's not something that people just kind of, do the white girl bop or the sway or the shimmy. Like it makes you want to get up and step around a little bit, and it's a fun song. So Suavemente, Elvis Crespo, look it up. But then some other artists that I've highlighted that I personally love, obviously Shakira, one of the greatest singers to come out of Colombia. Shakira's hella smart too. Like, she knows English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and I think she knows Romanian, but I'm not sure. I mean, all of the Romance languages, sure, or maybe it's Italian. Maybe it's Italian, actually. But super smart, beautiful, can sing, can dance, she's got it all. J Balvin is another one. He makes really good music. He collabs a lot with a bunch of different artists, so I'd look out for J Balvin. Paulo Londra is actually my age. He's a couple months older than me, and has like millions of dollars, and I have like $25 and some chocolate and coffee, so that's good. Anitta is a Brazilian singer. She is fluent in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, and makes songs in all three languages, and I love her music too. So basically, just go, if you have Spotify or you have the free version, I have the free version of Spotify, go to the playlist Viva Latino. And that's all you got to do. Just listen through it, see if you like it, see if you don't. Most of the music is pretty good, I think. And then finally, I have down Spanish in the real world. So like I told you guys before, I want to go into medicine and be some kind of healthcare provider, whether that be a physician or a physician assistant. And so I told you about my volunteer experience in Chambersburg, but I didn't tell you that I'm also a volunteer at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center's UPMC interpreting department. So I go around and I can shadow the interpreter and see the interactions of how it is to use an interpreter in the medical setting, or I can go around on my own into different patients' rooms and just have a conversation with them. Hi, how are you? Is there anything I can get for you? How's your stay? Tell me about yourself. I'll tell you about myself. These are the kind of things that help you with your confidence in Spanish. They help expand your vocabulary, expand your auditory processing of how people speak, and you get volunteer hours out of it. So like, it's making someone's life a little better, which is that kind of interaction that I crave so much, that I detailed for you in that first example. If any of you want to go into, whether or not you want to go into medicine, if you want to go into science in general, public health, being a science teacher or a biology professor or research, a lot of scientific words have Latin roots. A lot of Latin roots are in Spanish words. So you're learning these things like in hyperthyroidism. I don't know. It just kind of came to me. You're learning these things and you're getting these little bits of like remedial recitation for Spanish. You'll be like, oh, that's like the parathyroid, para for the 4 glands of the thyroid, like things like that. I last spring break went to Budapest in Hungary, and I was surrounded by a bunch of people speaking Hungarian, naturally. A lot of Germanic, Slavic, Nordic-derived languages have a lot of consonants in them, so it was very, very hard to communicate with people, but I needed to get into some environment where I felt comfortable, and that was either going to be English or Spanish. So I decided with my friend to go to the Spanish restaurant, and they had a flamenco dance, and it was super packed, and the waiter comes around, and he was like, oh, what do you want to eat? What do you want to drink? And so it's legal in other countries, so jot that down. I was like, oh, well, can I see your wine list? But I asked him in Spanish, and you know what homie did? Homie brought me more bread and gave me extra wine for free. Is that allowed? Absolutely not. Did it help my cause? You bet it did. And then finally, there are multiple studies that prove being bilingual and exercising your brain in 2 different languages or more can prevent the onset of neurocognitive disorders, dementia, Alzheimer's, things that are really, really scary, and really you lose the core of your personality, of who you are to your loved ones and friends. That can be delayed by up to 5 years, which is incredible. Like, just being able to speak English and Spanish and being able to go back between the two, not being fluent, you don't have to be completely fluent, just being able to interact with the 2 languages, I mean, that's awesome. Especially if you have a genetic inheritance or linkage that may cause predisposition to the development of said neurocognitive disorder. That's huge. 5 more years of who you are, that's huge. So that's pretty much all I have for it. I hope you guys have a great year. I hope you guys do well on your AP exams. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is tyu1@pitt.edu. And yeah, have a great day. Thanks for having me, Ash.